So we have Sam McSwain here, who's now a real estate agent. He's an entrepreneur into marketing, and he's a former athlete at Texas A&M University. So we're going to talk about fitness stuff with Sam here, get to know a little about him, about his fitness journey, and where he's going next. So I've known Sam, honestly, since 2012, but we only got we run into each other a couple of times, but we've only got to
Yeah.
know each other pretty well the last 2 years, I want to say. And, it's been amazing knowing Sam. He's inspired me to do a lot of new stuff, especially with my jump rope skills, and being way more athletic than I was before meeting Sam. And, just having an all around physical edge compared to others. Because, working on different things like balance, weight training, body weight control. I always see Sam doing handstands just randomly popping it up at the gym and then walking on his hands, doing archer pull-ups, also doing Olympic weight training. So, Sam's a well-rounded athlete who inspired me. So, it's good to have Sam in here
Appreciate that.
to talk about fitness. So, Sam, let's start off with, what made you an athlete? What did you do in high school? What did you go to A&M to study? What did you go to A&M to participate in sports? And how did your journey pan out?
Yeah, man. Well, what made me an athlete? So I will say it would have to be those athletes that I grew up with, man. I have to first off give them the credit. I come from the southeast side of Fort Worth, Texas, and it's just a bucket of talent. It's not every 1 in 10. You're talking every 1 in 2 kids, and I found myself, at least the way I saw it, on the other side of the spectrum of not that talented, a little behind. And I think that was kind of due to just being I have one sister, she's 7 years older than me. So I think a lot of times you see kids who they grow up with siblings, and cousins, and they're challenging and competing against each other. And I did get that, but I got that, as soon as I hit the adolescent age, and there were a lot of new relationships, new introductions, and that challenge off the rip, those talented individuals just they had something that I could shoot for, whether it was quickness, agility, having the hops, being fast, all of those things. I wasn't, and so it was very easy for me to always have like a rabbit to chase. And so when I looked up and I was in high school and I'm high jumping, I just loved dunking. I loved basketball. That was the thing. I loved dunking. I was inspired by the people like Dr. J, obviously Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Vince Carter, Dwight Howard, Nate Robinson, most of those guys being like dunkers, and so I started dunking when I was 12 years old. When I was 11 years of age, I could just jump up and grab onto the rim. That was kind of the thing, I would just go underneath the rim, jump up, and I could catch the rim. And so I was fascinated with dunking, and so that led me into high jump. I remember my coach, Coach Bowler, when I went to Meadowbrook Middle School. We didn't even have a track at the time. We had to walk back across the street to Meadowbrook Elementary. And I remember my coach, he took me and a friend of mine named Dane Walker. He took us out there, and he just watched us. He had us run a few times, and he was looking for athletic cues to show us what we may be good at. After evaluating us, he said, Sam, you're going to do high jump. Daniel, you're going to do long jump. And I bring up that story and include Daniel because, fast forward when we were seniors in high school, when we were juniors as well as seniors, we won the state. I won in high jump. He won in long jump. And Daniel is literally one of the greatest athletes I know. Shouts out to him. He's an engineer now, but I feel like he could still, this guy could, if he wanted to, he can go out there and do some crazy stuff. And so I was inspired by people like him. We had played Pee Wee football back in 2003 for the Fort Worth Falcons. And so, I look up, I'm in high school and I'm high jumping. And once again, I love basketball. If I could have had a scholarship and an opportunity in that route, would have taken it. But I saw myself winning state and high jump. And so when I was looking at opportunities, once again, I've been doing sales. When I was 17 years of age, I was selling knives for Cutco, if anybody heard of Vector Cutco, they hire a lot of kids, and I think it's a great opportunity. Any opportunity for a kid to learn what's going on in the workforce is a great step ahead, and it gave me a step ahead. It showed me how to source my own leads. I got fascinated with that, right? And so um, I said, you know what? These coaches, right? They're not made from a magic fairy. They're human just like me, so I should be able to find them the same way I found leads in regards to selling knives. So if there's a platform that I can find them on, which happens to be a website for a school, we're blessed to have technology. And so I said, okay, well, there has to be an email or a phone number I can catch them at, right? And so I essentially recruited myself. And I specifically in my community, I've always seen sports to be one of those things that has allowed people that look like me to necessarily kind of make a way for themselves in this world. And once again, having two parents who are entrepreneurs, hip by hip, being raised in a beauty college where my father wasn't too proud to, get his license to be an instructor. Well, get his license to be a cosmetologist and become an instructor. He was already the president of a beauty college, and yet he didn't have he didn't graduate high school. And so a man that was deemed uneducated became the president of an educated Department of Education accredited business, and so that upbringing already gave me a mindset that I was going to be my own boss. I mean, every single week, my dad was putting this in my head as well, in regards of like, he would just make the example of, hey, you notice how if I'm sick, if your mom's sick, if there's something going on, you notice how we can just leave. You notice how we can kind of do what we like when we like. That's why you want to be a business owner. My father would always tell me when he was growing up, his generation was told, grow up, get a good job. And he would always say, I want you to grow up to be your own boss. Make good jobs for other people. And they'll take care of you. Take care of them, they'll take care of you. And so, having that mindset when I was 17, going out and saying, all right, I can be like every other person that looks like me, and I can be the cliche, he's just riding the sport. And I say, I could let athletics use me and look up and I know what to do next, or I can use athletics. I'll take the latter. And so that was the mindset I had, right? I actually didn't play football in high school. I was always that tall kid that the high school coaches were chasing around, like, we need you to be a receiver yesterday. And I almost did it, almost did it. And but I didn't end up playing football. I went to Trimble Tech my first 2 years of high school, and Trimble Tech is the first school in Fort Worth, Texas. So the oldest school in Fort Worth, Texas. It's a technical school. I studied cosmetology when I was there, and that's actually where after my sophomore year, I was almost convinced to be a receiver. Ended up transferring to Nolan Catholic, and ironically, the football program was a great program, and within the division that these kids were playing in, they were really great. Once again, I grew up around some very talented individuals, and so I did not necessarily see the same talent. However, when kids are winners, when athletes are winners at a young age, it is an interesting mindset in regards of you can be in the smallest town, and if you're a winner, I mean, it takes you getting outside of that bubble for that bubble to be a little, like, just be a little humbled in regards to, like, hey, maybe, sometimes you could be LeBron James coming from the small town, or maybe you haven't seen LeBron James yet because you're in the small town. And Fort Worth isn't a small town by any measure. Once again, a huge bucket of talent, north, south, east, west. If you think about the kids in Lido, DeSoto, Duncanville, LD Bell, Martin, the list really goes on in regards of just powerhouses. And so, here I am, 5A TAPS, private school. And so I was able to actually make a way for myself in high jump. So the reason for me explaining the kids was the fact that, I didn't end up wanting to play football when I got to Nolan Catholic. I said, what, I have to win though. It's something. If I'm not going to join them, then I have to at least win on my account. And, by the blessings of God, I was able to win TAPS 5A high jump, both my junior year and then my senior year. And that's thanks for, I definitely had buddies believing in me as well. And so, um, yeah, from there, I jumped 6'10" my senior year. That gave me some juice, and that juice is what I used to recruit myself. Once again, I just took the initiative, and that's this from the skill that I learned from practicing in the workforce. Working in the workforce. As a teenager, with selling the knives, I learned how to present. I learned how to follow up on leads, and I just transitioned that into getting myself recruited. That's kind of something that I guess, once again, this may be the first time that the world learns that about me. I wasn't a scholarship athlete. I was a, what do you call it, preferred walk on. And I recommended myself. So I got the job. I reached out to the schools I was interested in. I liked Mizzou. I loved UT at the time. I'm a Texan, so I loved UT. Let's see, who else was it? I visited UTA because they're Arlington. They're literally 15 minutes away from me. And, I visited A&M. And A&M, Coach Van Hoodigan at the time, he asked me if I wanted to be here, if I wanted to be an Aggie. And, I looked up at the time that he asked me, and I looked up and I said, nobody else is throwing anything at me or saying anything. So yeah, sure. And he got me in there. So yeah, that's I hope in regards to how it panned out, me getting to A&M, that's how I got there. And so I hope that answers the question. But
Yeah.
it's been, I mean, what I got to College Station in 2012, and that's when we got into the SEC. And that was all of this was just a blessing in regards to I was not the most up to date kid. I was definitely floating. I was floating as a kid. And so me getting to A&M on the track team, I had no idea what was really in store over those next 5 years. I had no idea. But what started to happen was that basketball kid, loved dunking and had some quick bunnies and could get up a little bit. He was humbled quickly. As soon as I got to A&M, I was kicked off of the team after like the first semester. Just like, nah, kid, you're not gonna cut it. That's it. And I just remember this feeling of, oh, dude, what? Like, wait, I'm at least an athlete, if anything. Like, wait, what? And that kind of started the reason as to me never leaving College Station. I stayed and I trained and I trained and I tried out the next semester, and I got back on the team. Yeah, and so got back on the team, but that wasn't enough for me. Obviously, I was hungry, and I was coming from for everyone's head. And it was great. It was a great team to have that energy because that team had that energy. It was an amazing team to be a part of, and I got fascinated with training. I had never had fundamental training growing up. Going back to that, being that kid who was raised in a beauty college, a family business. His sister's 7 years older. He's kind of a loner. Plays basketball with a couple guys here and there, but it's I didn't have that fundamental training, and I just absolutely loved it. Like I loved everything about it. I love that. It's not. It can be sheer talent that you can have some explosive hips and jump high. However, to see a human apply the proper mechanics when performing, to see that in real time like a majestic horse running the perfect race, it is what I believe we show up to see when we watch athletes. And I just fell in love with what goes on in the background. And so, that's one of the reasons I kept doing it. I started coaching a kid named Tyson, and this kid, man, oh man, Tyson Turner. Let me tell you, number 11. He actually just got his number 11 at Texas Tech.
Nice.
And yeah, and the kid, he loves football. He's a receiver. He could go jump. He could go high jump whenever he wants. That's from my understanding. That's where he still stands. But I know he's going to tear it up in football. I'm not sure if he's actually going to go the track route, but we shall see. He's amazing. He's the reason I actually stayed active at it as well, because he kept me fascinated with it. It's one thing to train for something for years on end, and then finally get it. You figure it out. You're 22, 23, and then you look up, and I got this opportunity to train the Bryan Thunderbolts track team summer, make a little cash while they're in town, and this kid was he just loved it. He just loved jumping. He loved it so much he was jumping from the wrong side. And I had to figure out with him about 60, 70 other children, toddlers, by the way. You're talking 6 to 9 years of age. I had to figure out which side they jump from. Best way to do that is you as the coach, stand up on a higher platform, put your hand up, make it fun for them, right? This is what training became for me. It was fun. And so put your hand up and say, all right, try to come jump and touch my hand. All right. And the idea is, one, teach them how to jump off one leg, right? Because a lot of them will jump up off two. And then that's a teachable moment. And, you're probably going to do this drill 5 to 8 times. And, you're going to have some that literally they're going to do it perfectly 8 times. What is perfect? Perfect is their comfort off that one foot. That's perfect. And this kid, I realized, okay, he's not jumping from the right side. He's just loving jumping because he's beating all these other kids easily. So when he starts to jump from the left side, oh man. But nevertheless, I became much more fascinated with what I was already, what I just finished learning, and you don't stop learning something. And that made me fascinated with high jumping, and I continued to high jump. I'm like, man, I'm gonna keep going after this. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things where I could not get away from the idea of training. And I started to, if I'm not working, I'm living in the gym kind of guy. I was in there like for hours, and it was lovely because I knew that there was, there's taxes, there's death, and there's repetition. Like, it's like, what am I sure of? Well, taxes, leaving this earth one day. And if I can be repetitive, if I can just be repetitive, you know what? Anytime hit depression, I feel lazy. I feel like I'm not doing enough. Guess what? If I'm getting in the gym for 2 to 3 hours, I'm doing enough. I just maybe am not putting it in the right lane. But I'm only going to, in my opinion, I'm only going to really know that, realize it, figure it out when I actually give myself the time to figure it out. And for me, that's in the gym.
Man, that's an amazing story. I think, some important points to touch on. The first being, who you surround yourself with and who you look up to makes a huge impact on what you become, right? You want positive energy around you, right? The competitive athletes when you're growing up, the athletes you looked up to in the NBA, the parents, the support system, the business mindset shaped you into who you are. And it's just such a strong positive influence that people take for granted, right? When you're growing up, it's easy to always want to have fun, right? Which is true, but people don't tend to balance. There's never balance between work and fun, or work and outside work life for a lot of people, right? They want to go ham at the nightclub. They want to drink a lot, right? Every weekend I want to go drinking, right? And every weekday I'm recovering from the hectic week I had. And, you lose focus of what you want to do or what you should probably do in life, which is, lock in.
That's exactly right. You remember that part where I say, hey, you know what? If I didn't give myself that time, right? And so that is, to me, what I see, because I coach, you say, sort of like life coaching. It was more of accountability coaching for about maybe a year and 9 months. And what I noticed was that I was really coaching people towards finding that bubble of time for themselves to figure it out. Some of us can figure it out by looking out the window for 30 minutes. Some of us can figure it out by putting ourselves in our room for 30 minutes. Some of us can figure it out by jogging on the treadmill for 30 minutes. And I think that when you look at the 9 to 5 as a grind, get off, you're tired, chill, get to the weekend, you want to do something before the weekend's over. And, I totally get it. I think when it comes to the balance, it's really important to find that what is that 30-minute bubble of fulfillment for me. When
Yep.
I jump rope, I found that fulfillment for me. Do I recommend that everyone go and get a jump rope so that they can be fulfilled? No, not at all. I know some people who ice skate, some people who snowboard. Some people knit. I mean, whatever your thing is, you'd be surprised at just giving yourself that bubble of fulfillment can give you that balance that we're talking about.
100%. And, it's important to lock in and tune into yourself and understand how you can better yourself. Even if it's just a little bit every day, it's not always about, doing the easiest thing. And that's also something very important that you touched on, which is the struggle, right? People tend to give up when shit gets hard very easily. I don't see the results, I give up. And for you, it was even worse, right? You got kicked off. Was that too strong a word? Or you had to leave the team, right?
I think that's a great way to
one
put
semester.
it.
But you came back, right? You worked hard the semester after and you got back on the team. I think, not giving up is such an important thing, right? It's people fail all the time. You start a business, the odds of you failing are higher than the odds of you succeeding, right? But the most successful businessmen, you ask them, yeah, I've been in debt multiple times. Yes, I've had multiple failed businesses. It's what the experience makes you to become, right? That's what matters. You grow from a failure, from learning, using that failure as an experience to teach yourself how to improve and what you couldn't do the last time. And, slowly learning with each step is what it's about, right? That's the journey. That's the struggle. That's what makes a great experience.
Something that I think is important there too is truly defining our success. I think a lot of us are running after someone else's success, right? You got to define your success. I've always had this fascination with getting to 1 billion. I don't know why B looks attractive to me, but it's been something that's there. I had a brother say to me once, he said, Sam, you'd be surprised how good living on 200,000 a year feels.
Yep.
And it struck me. It struck me that actually I found someone who's not chasing my success, who's not chasing what I consider success. Is success touching $1 billion in revenue? Or is success actually helping 100 people live? And I have found that starting with that little fulfillment, those bubbles of fulfillment, those bubbles of 15 to 20 minutes to 30 minutes. I mean, this bubble is so important. It helps you break habits, man. I've seen it, with myself and with others, but if we can give ourselves 5 minutes, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, right, of self-fulfillment, then we can also figure out what is success to us.
Yep.
Is my success getting in an RV and driving around the town, around the world, or United States, or wherever I'm at for the next however many months or years? What is success to me? And I think that's the beauty of millennialism. I think that with millennialism, we are blessed with that opportunity to find and define our own success, right? We don't have to chase what someone else considers to be success in their life for the first time. We don't even have to chase it in regards to family dynamics. As you've probably noticed, there's a lot less babies that are being born, a lot less marriages and knots that are being tied in our generation alone, right? We don't have to. What was considered success is altered.
It's such an important thing. Success is defined by you. You have to define what success is to you, right? Somebody might be happy making $85,000 a year, but being able to go to the gym 6 times a week and spend the weekend and every weekday with their friends, right? For others, success may be $200,000 working 12 hours a day, 6 times a week. For some people, it might be getting an RV, traveling all around the US, going up to Canada, not being bounded by borders. So, success is what makes you happy, and it's your journey of how to get successful in the way you want to get successful. That's such an important thing. To transition into something of your next stage of life, So after college, I assume you were 22, 23, around 21 to 23 years old.
Yep.
What did you do to stay fit and to be chasing your path of success? It's outside the gym and inside the gym. What
kind of
what did you
funny.
do? And now you're 30. So what were the
Dude,
last 7 or 8 years like for you?
the funny thing about that is it kind of coin. Like I did door to door sales for this. So I stayed in shape by doing that. So that's the irony there. So yeah, man, I let's see. Like, and if I'm being serious, I continue to train for high jump. I continued to train for high jump, so it was still powerlifting, and I was, I'm still a student of the game, but I was rapidly learning powerlift much stronger weight, because it's like, okay, now it's full on. If you're gonna jump the big boys, and you're gonna have to lift some big boy weight, and so yeah, so 22, 23, 24, yeah, that's what I was doing. I was power cleaning, really learning how to do that. I was also I was training mobility, right? So I don't know how you say it. Guess I would say practicing Eldoa, ELDOA. And I absolutely love Eldoa. I was taught by Philip Baggs, as you know, Philip, the owner of Brazos Valley Barbell, and Philip was a trainer at Texas A&M. He was an assistant trainer there before I got there, and so I had the pleasure of working with Philip for many years, from about thinking about 2015, and we really started to work heavily 2017 through about 2019. And the guy is amazing. He taught me Aldoa. He really, I can squat because of this guy now. I couldn't squat and just hold my form. So many things that my body was incapable of doing. I was humbled tremendously over the years. Especially when I got to A&M to see what athleticism was. If you ask me what athleticism is today, it's definitely not what I thought it was. 10 years ago. I think that the strongest or the fastest person is quote unquote the most athletic. But why do I think someone like LeBron James will be considered like the most athletic? Well, because when you see LeBron James jump in the air, do you notice how his entire body turns into like a bow and arrow, and his arm is like, his hand is literally almost touching his foot? That is mobility. And to have mobility of that nature at 6'8", not even to mention what even propelled you into that position was your explosiveness. I mean, that to me is athleticism, right? Because if you think about an athlete, what is an athlete? Is an athlete a sumo wrestler, or is an athlete a tennis player? Are they not both, right? And so I've always thought that the athletic definition was it was interesting, because quite literally I don't believe you can truly put a stamp on it outside of being a well-rounded person that can perform many physical feats.
Oh man, just to jump in really quickly, that's such a good definition, and that's what I tell a lot of people, right? A lot of people go on social media and they have this distorted vision of what reality is, right? They see people jacked up on steroids with a six pack, massive 250 pounds, and then
Yeah,
they see other people who can just jump, right? But can't bend down and touch their toes, or who can run
right.
really fast, but, can't squat side to side, like side lunges all the way where your butt is touching the floor kind of thing. And I think,
Yeah,
athleticism, like you said, is integrated, right? It has many different components to it. Physical fitness, such as, muscle development, cardiovascular fitness, balance, explosiveness, mobility and flexibility, and speed, agility, and quickness. And people tend to forget, they focus on one thing. But the older you get, the more stress you put on your body in one direction, you lose out on other things. You start getting
right.
injured. Your hips get tighter, your knees start hurting, your ankle has no mobility, your shins are always on fire after you run. And so,
Yeah,
the definition of fitness, I believe, should be subjective to each individual, right? For somebody who's 70, maybe fitness is, getting out of the chair 3 times a week, stretching a little bit, doing some mobility work, and having no back pain anymore. Maybe for somebody who's 25, it's running as fast as you can, running a marathon and putting on good amount of muscle, and fitness goals can change. But,
yeah.
incorporating different elements of fitness makes you much better in the long term than just focusing on one single thing.
Habits, man. I think that's what
Habits.
I think that's what we're talking about right there. It's when I was younger, I think I would always hear people say that that fitness guy, that fitness gal, they were doing too much, right? Whether they were doing too much by counting their calories, they were doing too much by getting sleep, they were doing too much by going to the gym so many times throughout the week. Whatever it may be, they were doing too much simply because they look too physically active. Whatever they were doing too much about it, to me, it always comes down to that's what we all should be doing. When I learned how to eat properly, I realized this is what we all should be doing. And I still have people saying, well, I can't do all that, Sam. The fact that you meal prep your smoothies and have Ziploc bags of chopped up fruit in your freezer is just doing too much. Well, I'm like, dude, we both have jobs. Like, would it not be? You're going to go to Smoothie King and spend $7. You're going to get a Smoothie King, spend $7. Chug that thing because either you're going to be spending another $7 tomorrow. Let's go ahead and I just need a disclaimer. We're talking about $45 a week. Even if obviously we've heard the coffee, right? Like the reality is you're spending $5 on coffee. I mean, come on, what are we doing, right? And so like I have a habit of I have natural coffee, right? Let's just say at home coffee, homemade coffee. But habits, man, I mean, they're so important, in incorporating so many different things when it comes to your agility, flexibility, mobility, your strength, your cardiovascular health. It's applying yourself 15, 20 minutes of stretching and warming up for your workout. Applying yourself to the gym before you get there so you have enough time, right? Those are habits. Those are all habits. And I tell people, man, habits are not there for when things are going well. They're there for when things are not going so well, right? Then you can lean on those things, right? If things aren't going well, but you can still make it to the gym, I'd say you're better off than you would be if you weren't going to the gym. Just my guess. I think if you continue to drink water every day, even through depressive episodes, I think you're probably going to be better off than if you literally did not drink water through that depression. I think if you actually didn't deprive yourself of sleep and you got 6 to 8 hours of sleep, at least 5 to 6 nights out of the week, I think you would literally be in a much better mental, physical, and spiritual state.
100%, man. And people always think good habits are difficult to form because they don't let it play out for a bit. People say, okay, I want to go to the gym. I want to eat clean. I want to do everything. I want to sleep 8 hours. I want to work 9 to 5, etc., which is great. But, habits are also built slowly, and habits are not meant to burn you out, right? And so, maybe one step people can take is, start off the first week by going to the gym consistently, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. The next week, incorporate meal prep, and meal prep is so easy. Like you said, you can spend one day, a weekend, any Saturday or Sunday, any other days, 3 hours, and you can have 3 meals prepped for the entire week, coming up week. It's not that hard. And it saves you so much time.
And remember that little 15-minute bubble or 30-minute bubble of fulfillment. Like, I'm so fulfilled when I meal prep because it was time well spent. So I just saved myself the future. So instead of making dinner for 20 to 30 to 40 minutes out of 5 of the next 7 nights, now that I just condensed that down to 10, 15 minutes each one, I just saved myself a few hours. That's amazing and fulfilling.
Yeah. 100%, man. And you can make it an activity that you can enjoy too, right? I jam out to my music. It's on full blast. I'm jamming out. I'm dancing. I'm singing. I'm prepping my food. I'm chopping my veggies. I'm marinating my chicken. I'm grilling it. Whatever. It becomes your own chill session. You get to clear your mind a little bit and just hang out with yourself. Stay in your own lonely zone. And just think about, how your week went, what you want to achieve in life, what you have planned for the next week, or, just zone out of the world completely. But yeah, man, habits are so crucial. And once you give it some time, you start one habit today, let it go on for a week. The next week, you're going to feel better. You've done something good. You feel like, okay, 5 days out of the week, I worked out. I felt great. I felt amazing. I see my arms looking a little bigger. I see my waist has gone in. Let me go another 5 days. And slowly, the more results you see with your habits, it reinforces each other, right? Results come from habit and habit comes from results, right? You're more motivated to keep doing something when you see results, and you only get results the more you do something. And I want
to say you can have bad habits, right? Yes. And my favorite thing about habits is rerouting them, right? And habit replacement, right? And so what does habit replacement look like? Well, Uncle Sam smokes Newports, right? Why? Eh, whenever you get stressed. Why? Well, because each habit has this thing called a trigger. A habit loop has 3 points to it. There's the trigger, right? This is why marketing and advertising is so important, because the trigger can be something that we see, something that we smell, something that we sense. I just don't like that person. I don't know. I don't know something about them. I maybe can't even remember that person reminds me of someone who bullied me when I was a child. I don't know, or smell. That smells great. Do you ever feel like food places are just throwing the smells out into the air to make you hungry, right? You're triggered. What happens when you're triggered? It's then the second part of the habit loop, which is how you behave, behavior. Now you behave a certain way because of what? Because you, just like a baby crying for their pacifier or their milk, want a reward, you see? And so just think about it as in the baby format. Well, the baby's triggered. Why are they triggered? They're hungry. Okay, so how do they behave? They cry. What's the reward? They get milk. Same thing, we wake up. You're triggered by what? Oh, I'm tired. I don't know. It's going to be a long day. Stayed up too late. So what's my behavior? Let me make this coffee. What's my reward? I got energy. So just like Uncle Sam, hey, you know what? My trigger, I'm stressed. Okay, what do? I get stressed. Let me go get that Newport. Okay, then what does that do? Okay, all right, now Uncle Sam gets relieved of stress for a second. Now, these are all habits. How do you replace them? Well, the way that you renew the habit is once you are triggered, let's say Uncle Sam is triggered by stress, that behavior, can you change the trigger? No, you can't change the trigger. You can't change that person, the way they look made you feel weird, the way that smells make you hungry or it doesn't make you hungry. You can't change what the trigger is. You can change what you behave, how you behave, right? So if that behavior is, you know what, Uncle Sam gets a Newport. If that behavior is, okay, I'm stressed, so now I'm going to, or even I've gone to a depressed funnel, right? I swindle down. All I need to do is before I do that normal behavior, right? What if I read a book for 5 minutes? What if I stare out the window for 5 minutes? What if I do 5 push-ups? Now, I'll tell you what happens. The new thing that I do will give me what? A new reward. So doing the push-up, looking out the window, reading a book, it will be a new reward. And the question that I always get asked is, okay, well, what happens after I get that new reward and I still would like to do my bad habit? I still want to go get my Oreos out the pantry. I still want to go and smoke the Newport. As a coach, personally, I say, you know what? Do it. I don't believe in cold turkey. You know that thing where they say don't go cold turkey? This is what I see playing out, and this is what I have seen play out, is you get stressed. Okay, then you do the push-ups. You get the new reward. And you say, do I still want to get the Newport? You don't feel as good as you did with the new trigger, but with the new behavior. However, what happens is positive reinforcement happens. What if every time you got triggered, you did those 5 push-ups? One day you will look up and then you won't even need it anymore. You know, that happened to me in college. In college, I dipped. And I remember it got to the point to where, I just wanted it in my pocket and I didn't even need it anymore, And so, you can really recycle or renew or replace any habit. And I think that's the best thing to do, because you're turning your bad habits into good habits. And so if you have a bad habit of sleeping in, well, you could always replace that with, what if I go to the gym now? But like 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel better a couple hours later than if you just stayed in bed. That's the reality of it, in my opinion.
100%, man. I absolutely agree with you. And that's so cool, that you talked about, I don't want anybody to go cold turkey, especially immediately. Because, balance in life is important. You want to do the things you like doing, right? So in this case, not specific to bad habits, but in general, right? You want to enjoy doing the things you do, but you also want to have some time for self-development. So think about it this way, right? People are like, oh, going to the gym, building muscle, staying fit is difficult because I not only have to go to the gym, but I got to put an effort outside and eat clean every single day of the week and every meal. That's actually not true, right? Number one, you want to go to gym 3 to 4 times a week or how many ever times you can fit in your schedule of work, have friend and social time or family time or whatever you like doing, your reading time, etc. And this new habit you want to form, right? Which is in this case going to the gym. So you added it slowly, you added in for an amount of time that's sustainable to you. For me, it may be 2 days, for you, it may be 6 days a week. And then outside of that, the eating part, people don't understand. You don't have to eat grilled chicken breast and white rice or brown rice and broccoli every single
Right,
meal
right.
7 times a week. It's okay to eat a scoop of ice cream. It's okay to eat that apple pie you've been craving. It's
Yeah.
okay to go out and eat a fat steak at a big steakhouse,
Ali, you
smothered
know
with
what I
butter.
think it is? I think what I found, a lot of us don't know how to recognize our food categories. You put 10 people in a room, in my opinion, and you ask them to identify 10 proteins versus 10 fats versus 10 carbs versus 10 vegetables. I believe that a third of the room, they're going to know how to identify vegetables over fats. You see what I mean?
Yep.
That's what I believe.
Yep. And it's so crucial to have a base understanding of nutrition, right? How should my plate look, for example, right? Understand what different protein options there are for you in the first way, what different carbs options there are, what kind of fruits available, what kind of vegetables are available, and how does fat play a role in the food you eat, right? People use oil, especially when you eat fast food or you go to a restaurant, oil is used. So that's the
Right.
fat you get from it, right? You're not going to add in like an avocado or something, mistaking it for a vegetable, but thinking of it as fat. And then, you probably, divide your plate according to a manner in which the majority of the food you're getting is from protein. You have some carbs, you have some veggies, and the fat, of course, if you're eating out, is from the oil. And if there's no oil, you get an avocado or nuts or something. And just really quickly, and having this base knowledge itself makes it so easy to eat out, right? The days you're tired of eating fast food every day, it gets to you, right? I don't want to eat that same McDonald's burger or the same whatever every
Right.
single day. I want to eat something healthier, but I don't have time to cook this week, whatever. Just recognizing the different food sources and how your plate can look makes it so much easier to pick food outside
Yeah.
that aligns with the health goals you want to have, right? I can just go
Yeah.
to McDonald's. I can get a salad from McDonald's. They're quick, they have salad, and I can just ask them for grilled chicken nuggets, or Chick-fil-A from, so I can ask them for grilled chicken nuggets on my salad instead of just getting like, every day the same spicy fried chicken sandwich or Chick-fil-A sauce, right? You can make those substitutions super easy.
Yeah. I think that, that goes to the identification, right? And once we can identify, and then we know like our blood type, and we know like who we are tribally, where we come from, our origins, what works well for our bodies individually, we can make that sound decision, right? I think it's one thing to know how to identify what should classify as, the fat, the carbohydrate, the protein. That's one great part. However, another great part is to know if you thrive on fats versus proteins, or if you thrive on fats, carbohydrates in the morning versus, later at night, where you may thrive better on fats, right? I think that we get into that science once we start to educate ourselves on just the basis of nutrition. I think that, when we were little, and, you have signs of like when they start to market milk, like got milk, like, we should probably consider changing those signs. And we were educated on milk. Now, like got protein, here are 10 different proteins, right? Eggs are too expensive right now. 60, like they're $40 for 60 eggs. So here's another way you can get protein. Here are 9 other options. Have you considered yogurt? Don't worry, throw a little honey on there. Like
Oh, man.
those are the things that I think if we just started to market that way, that would be life changing for so many people.
Yeah, man. And nutrition makes you feel so good. It's such an underestimated thing. People don't realize, just eating 3 healthy meals a
Yeah.
day can make so much difference, not only to your physical health, but your mental health, right? You're thinking more clearly. You feel good inside your body too, you're right. Not
I mean, one healthy meal is all I need, brother, and that'll make me feel better. No, yeah, eat your
Yeah,
meals, but
absolutely.
it like that's what sold me on eating a smoothie, drinking a smoothie each morning. Is I started to realize that I felt better days later. It wasn't like, oh, this is good right now. Like, no, this is good 2 days later. physically, I feel the results of eating clean and eating good today.
Absolutely, man. Nutrition and sleep. And sleep, 7 to 9 hours. It's something I struggle with, not because I'm late up at night. It just, you know, I can only sleep for 6.5 to 7 hours on average every night, right? I very rarely the seven, but the days, I get up to 8 hours. Have so much energy. I can work out 3 times. And I always tell my wife, right? So when I have like 7.5, 8 hours of sleep, I go get an intense workout in the gym and I go run a couple of miles outside with my heart rate decently high, not like an easy run. And I still feel energetic. And then I can go work my 8 hour day. And I always tell my wife, man, if I had decent sleep, my options would be limitless, right? And so,
Yeah.
God put this to humble me in life. He gave me bad sleep. But sleep is so important because my nutrition is in check, my physical regimen is in check. But if I could nail down sleep,
Do you have
I
have you considered getting a Whoop?
I had a Whoop. I just actually got rid of it because it was fucking
Oh,
with
yeah.
my health, like my mental state too much. Like I always looked at my strain score, and I was like, okay, just because I'm my recovery, sorry, just because I'm at like 60 today, I can't push hard, And
Oh,
I
dude,
stopped thinking about how my body feels.
you're
And so
getting
2 months
hyper
ago,
focused.
2 months ago, I got rid of it, but I still have it. It's right here. Ooh,
So you're telling me that you started to pick up the hyper focused like characteristic and habit of just like, yeah, and that's the balance. Sometimes you got to take a step back. Sometimes
yep.
now you're looking at it too much. And I was gonna just say, you're already being hard on yourself, dude. 6.5 hours is more than half of this freaking country gets right now. Okay,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
so that's still good.
Oh man. Sleep is so important.
I was gonna say, remember those the balance and just those what is athleticism. So really, I do want you to be easy on yourself, and know that all right, you're getting 6.5 hours of sleep, sure, but you're eating right.
Yeah.
You are getting your sleep. You are staying physically active. You are doing those self-fulfilling things, and so it balances out. Right?
It
If you
does.
weren't doing those other things around the clock, right now that 6.5 hours really feels worse than what it is. But yeah, I just want to put that out there.
100%, man. I think you can't have everything in life, but you can find a good balance of having the things you want, is what it gets at, right? You can't,
Oh
for
yeah,
example, you can't have perfect sleep, but I can control the nutrition. I can control how often I get in a workout, right?
yeah.
Because for me, sleep's not controllable, unfortunately. Whatever I do, I wake up fucking at 6:30 every day. Sleep at 1 a.m. I wake up at 6:30. I sleep at 9 a.m. I wake up at 9 p.m. I wake up at
Oh
3:30.
man,
It's weird.
that's funny.
Sam, one last question before we end.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I want to ask you. You've shifted your focus a little bit on the way you train, of what I understand. So from high jump in college, a little bit after that, to a lot of
Yeah.
jump rope, a lot of body weight skills, a lot of explosive training until your 30s. And so, we're touching base properly after probably a year now. So, you just told me you're going to be competing in a physique or bodybuilding competition, NPC National Physique Competition in May.
Yeah, it's the Ronnie Coleman Classic in Arlington. Yeah, so
Awesome.
it's more so to get my feet wet. It's you're posing. I'm not necessarily a bodybuilder. I don't know if I can afford to be a bodybuilder yet. But also I don't think that necessarily goes with my frame and my physique. And so it's been a lot of high volume. It was a lot of heavy loads when I first trained. It's been about going on 6 months now, and it's really had to match my weight when it comes to gram of proteins. I've had to increase them a little bit, but versus I guess when I ran track, I was definitely eating like a tank as well. But the age is different, the goal is different, and you'd be surprised what it takes to define muscle. But I'm definitely being very humbled. I'm doing a lot of different movements, a lot of volume. Actually, right now, the program that I'm on, I do 1,000 reps each session, and I am working on getting that under 2.5 hours. I think
Dang.
I touched about 2 hours and 10 minutes the last workout, and so I'm trying to figure that out right now. Yeah, but
Wow.
it's humbling, man. It's good.
How many times a week are you training?
So that's the funny thing is technically supposed to be training about twice a week. I'm doing something that no athlete should ever do. And that is not listening to my coach a little bit. You know, 3 days in between is just very hard for me. I mean, I've been training now for like 17 years of my life.
Yeah.
It's very hard to just not train for 3 days. Now, fair enough, I can go and do some yoga. Fair enough, I can stretch. You know, given what I'm doing, it's actually working too. So that's, to be fair, you know, I'll say, instead of, it's only been maybe once. Yeah, and there has definitely been once within this program where I'm supposed to be training, giving myself about 3 days in between. And so lately I've done 2 days of no training, and then I got back after it. And so that's been feeling pretty good. So when I look up doing 3 max a week.
Nice. So you have enough time to recover between workouts too, which is the important thing, right? Because 1,000 reps is no joke, man. You know, doing 100 reps of something is no joke either.
I can
And
just,
oh, how important is nutrition for you? So you mentioned the 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, but what about eating clean? How important is that for you, to build quality muscle and keep off as much fat as you can while building this quality muscle?
yeah, well, I've been blessed with a high metabolism, first off, brother. I'll just say
God
that.
bless you.
You know, that's that. First off, there's that. It's a real thing. It's okay. I think that we all have to just know what our body type is. You know, first know what it is, accept who we are and what we are. For me personally, I felt horrible. People call me chicken legs. You know, Slim Jim. You know, it's like when you're this skinny guy, it's not easy to keep on muscle. And so, which goes to the whole thing of bodybuilding as well. It's like I don't really care to go into the
No.
bodybuilding, because it's like that's not my body. It's not my structure. But what is my structure is, you know, the guys, when I look on the national physique competitions, and I think that my legs are symmetrical with my arms, which is also, I think people like to know that you're hitting, not missing leg day. And so, yeah, it's for me, man, I thrive on. I'll say I have a lot of pride behind being natural, and so the only thing that I do take is, you know, as I mentioned, I'll take protein powder, and I do take creatine. I take a little, like a half tablespoon of creatine about 3 times a week. So really, after those workouts, and I leave it there. Usually put peanut butter in my protein shake. In regards of the clean eating, you know, for me, I thrive on protein and fats. Right? Like I love vegetables, so I don't mind throwing vegetables in any of my food. I always balance it out. But you know, I'd be lying to you if I told you I don't thrive on some protein and some fats, brother. We got the brisket on the smoker right now,
Oof.
and that is, oh yeah, no, it's going down. You know, I'm brisket tacos, brisket and eggs, brisket and rice. All of it, like all of it, dude. So I definitely love eating clean. But you know, no buts. I love eating protein. I love eating fats. Carbohydrates are great. They just make my love handles love me a little too much. And so I usually have to watch that part. But you know, in regards of even pushing the mass, I just have to sit on the, you know, eat the carbs. You know, and I saw a lady who was talking about this on social media. She was just saying, you know, the bloated times, right? Like, I love to show my bloatedness, because that is a huge part of the process. It's a huge part. It's literally, in my opinion, 60 to 70% of your journey is going to be your bloated, right?
Mhm.
And it's necessary, you know, like, I mean, even the things that you put in your body so that you will be able to sustain it. Like I mentioned, a lot of oatmeal, a lot of bread when it comes to needing to push a lot of mass. And so I'm like,
Yep.
well, you know, I want to put myself in position to be successful in that. Remember, it's how we define success. Well, to be successful on that part of the journey, it's that you need to, you know, maybe have some meat on the bones, and also have the love handles loving you a little more, so that you can protect your body. You know, I don't need to be chiseled to the wire in the middle of my program. You know, I need to be maybe, you know, pushing some weight. So it's very important for me to eat clean. It's very, I mean, I think the diet, as they say, is everything. You know,
100%, man.
you have the fastest
And
car on the block, dude, but if you don't have the right fuel in it, it's not going to go anywhere.
no, absolutely. And dude, this high metabolism thing is so real, man. I can put down 3,700 calories a day. I can wake up the next day and my abs are still looking great. It's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also have high activity energy burn. So, I work out at least
Mhm.
6 times a week, running, strength training, etc. And I'm walking at least 2 to 3 miles a day. So, my body's always fucking at it. Like there's no
Yeah.
breaks for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Twitching in sleep.
always like,
It's awesome.
but dude, thanks for being here. Good luck with your
Thanks for
NPC
having me,
competition. I'm
man.
sure you're going to crush it. It was
Yeah, man.
nice
Thanks,
catching
man.
up.